Hi, everybody. This is Mark Becker, and I am the Associate Executive Director of Child Welfare, and I'm happy to be reading our mission statement. Caritas Family Solutions strengthens the social and emotional well-being of individuals and families in order to create healthy relationships, loving homes, and strong communities. Now get excited, everybody. It is time for your cast.
Welcome to CaritasCast. I am your host, Joel Malone, and with me always is
Brandon Montgomery. How you doing, Mr. Joel?
I am doing great. Another great Friday. Is summertime.
It's July.
It's July. It's hot. It's warm. I love this weather.
I like it spicy. That's how I like my summers. Hot. I like fireworks. I had a great 4th of July. Did you have a great 4th?
I was just going to ask you that. I had a great 4th. I saw fireworks. It was a scorcher. It was hot.
It was hot.
But it was
yes.
a good time. Had some good food, so I wasn't complaining at all.
Yeah, it was a great time. Good food, good family, good fun. I hope everybody out there in Caritas land also had a great 4th of July. And July, besides bringing us Independence Day, actually brings us an awareness month that I wasn't aware of myself. So if you remember, as an agency back in May, we celebrated Mental Health Awareness Month, a great month just to kind of bring attention to the stigma that surrounds mental health and how some people are kind of afraid to reach out for help sometimes. They see it as a sign of weakness or whatever it may be. So that month is geared towards just making people aware that, there are those out there that live with mental health issues and it's okay to get help. But July actually brings us Minority Mental Health Awareness Month.
Most people don't know this, but 1 out of 5 Americans suffer from some type of mental illness.
Wow.
On top of that, 14% of the U.S. population who identifies as Black or African American, 20% of those individuals are suffering from mental illness this year. That equates to over 7 million people. That's more than the population in Chicago, Houston, and Philadelphia combined. Many different cultures had many different beliefs. On top of that, issues with poverty, issues with lack of adequate health care. So there are a lot of things that play into reasons why certain populations don't necessarily reach out for mental health services. But I would greatly hope that everybody at Caritas uses our EAP program.
Absolutely.
And the reason I say that is, 1, it's free.
Yeah.
And your family can use it too.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's 100% confidential.
You can go to the intranet and click on a link on the homepage on the intranet, everyone. You can click on the EAP link and access everything on your own. It can be confidential.
It is 100% confidential. No one knows about it. I would highly recommend, even if you just want to say, hey, I just want to check in on myself for maybe a quick half hour, an hour, just to make sure that any type of feelings I might be having are actually true. Because a lot of times we just need to question some of those beliefs or those thoughts that we have and say, hey, are these really logical, or is this just something emotional that I'm feeling right now? And it doesn't hurt to just speak to someone about that. So I would highly recommend, please go to our intranet site and use those resources that are out there, and it's free.
Reaching out for mental health assistance is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It absolutely is. So now to kind of talk more about that, because you and I, we can share our lived experiences, but we are not experts in mental health. So we wanted to bring someone in who is an expert, who has that educational background. And we are so grateful today to have with us one of Caritas's wonderful therapists. He's really just a wonderful human being, really cares about our clients, Mr. Franklin Gray. Thanks for being with us today, Frank.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate being here, and you invited me to your podcast, and we can kind of talk about some of these issues.
Well, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today.
We were just mentioning that, we can speak to our lived experience when it comes to mental health, but we're not the experts. So we wanted to have someone like you on who is an expert. So can you kind of share with us what your credentials are and your educational and work background?
Sure. So I actually got my undergraduate degree in social work from Southeast Missouri State, and I graduated in 2009. And then I went on to Florida State University, and I graduated in July of 2021. And I also got my master's degree in social work there. And I was able to use my credentials to get a job here at St. John Bosco. And eventually my plan is to get my degree as a licensed social worker to, kind of do mental health services in various places, not just Caritas.
Great. Well, we feel so grateful to have you on the show, and so grateful that you're out there at St. John Bosco helping those children. And we were talking about some of the differences between, just general, mental health awareness month and minority mental health awareness month. And I was somewhat naive to differences between people's backgrounds and how that might affect their mental health. So can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yes. There was something that we had talked about earlier before where like the difference between like just mental health in general and minority mental health is that a lot of Black people, we have a lot of stigma when it comes to mental health and getting help in our mental health services. A lot of the trauma that we face is, of course, from slavery, and then having to sort of navigate that in the present day. It's something that we definitely need to address because it's very important for, not only our future as individuals, but all of us moving forward. It's very important that you focus on your mental health because it's just as important as, getting help for, a physical wound that you have. Like if you have a broken leg, you certainly need to have somebody administer some aid to that. And that would be the same thing for mental health as well. You need the help to, help you adjust and become a better person in society.
So why in the Black community does there seem to be a stigma about, first of all, having a mental health issue, and then second of all, asking someone for help?
I think the stigma is that there's not very many Black clinicians who are available, or at least not as many to, go ahead and talk to members of that community, meaning that, it's oftentimes I would say Black people would have it easier to talk to another person who looks like them to discuss some of the cultural issues that we face. And given the fact that there's not too many Black people who are, in the mental health field as professionals to deliver the services. But I also think it's just the stigma of, just being able to, talk through these things. And it's not that it's not valued, because that's certainly not true. I think a lot of Black people in general do value mental health services, but I think it's also a lack of understanding about like how it works and the process of it as well. And those two things combined sort of make it, in my opinion, at least, how it is today, where there's that stigma.
Right. Frank said it perfectly. Again, lack of clinicians. I'm not sure if a lot of people know this, but worldwide, there's a lack of therapists, or lack of therapists in the workforce currently. So that's one issue. Also, having therapists that fully understand the plight of the BIPOC population as well, to fully understand those issues that individuals of color are facing every day. That's another issue. Again, we talked about poverty and having lack of resources, and then, of course, just a lack of adequate healthcare as well.
As you guys were talking about this, I was reminded of a friend of mine who's not a minority, but he did return from the Iraq War, and he was living with PTSD. And he said that he found it challenging going to see a therapist who also wasn't a veteran as well, because they didn't have that war experience, and he had trouble relating to them in a therapy session. Is that similar to how it would be for someone who is a minority who isn't going to see a therapist that looks similar to them?
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Again, and going to what you were talking about earlier, just the fact of the lack of Black clinicians, and I would even go one step further, the lack of Black male clinicians on top of that, where, people like me are, there's certainly people in my field who, Black men who do this, but it's not as often as, Black women who are in this field. And nothing against that or anything like that, but it's hard to have, say, for instance, men don't typically get treatment for issues in general, and to then try and find a Black man who could relate to the struggles of, being in that situation, having to, balance, life and our own, gender specific obstacles that we have to face. It's hard to even find somebody like that to even have that conversation. So it just makes it very difficult overall.
And as men, in general, we're the last people to say it hurts or we need help. John Wayne don't complain, right?
Yeah, that's going to be my next comment about that. Like, when do most men come together and say, hey, I'm really feeling this type of way, or I'm really internalizing this and need somebody to speak to it. At least from my personal perspective, I don't know a lot of men that do that. So.
We see it as a sign of weakness, but truly saying I need help, that takes bravery. So that's a sign of strength. And Frank, you had mentioned that, some of this stigma related to going to getting help may be related to just a lack of understanding of the process. Maybe that, some people are worried about the confidentiality side of it, or they're just worried about, they're scared of the unknown. What is a therapy session going to be like? So can you kind of give us an idea, Frank, of what someone might expect when they're entering into the therapy scene, when they initially ask for help and they get their first session? What's it like for them?
Okay. So basically, whenever you first come into a therapy session, I would say usually the first few sessions are you getting to know the therapist and the therapist getting a chance to know you. What are your backgrounds? What are the issues that you're coming in to face? And then, they'll discuss about your history, like what happened before you got to this point. So to give you a small example, let's just say if a person comes in for, if they have an issue with alcoholism, we'll say, right? A therapist will say, hey, my name is this. What's your name? What's your problem? And then they will describe, I drink this much, how often, and this is what I came help for. And during an exchange, you and the therapist will, sort of discuss what your strengths are. What is it that you think is going to help you overcome the situation, and what are some things that maybe you aren't so great at? Is it the fact that you are, maybe don't have as much? Are you drinking because of stress? Are you self-medicating for, some reason or whatever? And between the two of you, you will work out a plan to figure out how we can move forward. And I want to say that one important part about all of this is that one thing about therapy is that it's a process. It's not a magic wand. We can't just say, hey, now that I go to therapy, I'm instantly cured. It's a long process. And during that time, no matter what your situation is, you are going to not necessarily relapse, but you might go back into old habits that are not helpful and for you to get to the destination that you're looking for, or the outcome that you're looking for. And it's a process and it takes time. So if you aren't in this process, make sure that you are forgiving of yourself and give yourself enough grace. We are all works in progress, and it just takes time. So be patient with yourself.
So there's certainly, challenges and differences as it relates to minority mental health in the adult population. Do we see differences in minority mental health in the child population? Because you are primarily serving children.
Well, as far as the children are concerned, I think across the board, the number one problem that I see is fatherlessness. And many members of the Black community, myself included, were raised by, single parent households. And there's a lack of positive male role models in all of our lives. And so if there's say a Black male child who comes in, that person's not always assigned to me. It just sort of depends on their situation, their circumstance. But yes, more or less, they're usually paired with me. And for me, as far as the children is concerned, I usually take more of a mentorship role because there is that lack of father, that father figure in that role. And I don't pretend to say that I'm definitely not trying to take the place of anybody's father or anything like that. But a lot of these children can very much benefit from a positive male role model to teach them a little bit about life. And, these are some things that you're going to face, and these are some challenges that you have to overcome.
I'm kind of getting chills as you're talking, because I'm so happy that we have someone at Bosco like you that sees that need for, kind of filling that mentorship role, as well as that clinical role of being their therapist. So if you were to speak to the minority population in our community, and specifically the population that may be living with a mental concern, a mental health challenge right now, and are afraid to ask for help, Frank, what would you say to everyone, kids, adults, that are just, curious about getting into the process? How would you encourage them?
So there's a few opportunities that are available to you. First and foremost, just reach out and see, say, for instance, if you have health insurance, look to your, health insurance to see who's available to you as a provider who lives in your area. That's the first step. And for those of you who don't have health insurance, If you are close enough to, like, say, a college or something like that, most colleges have like a school of psychology or a social work program, and they all have students that are looking for practice. And many people might be worried, hey, like, I don't know if I want to get, a student to practice on me. Each of these students are monitored by a practicing licensed, professional who is going to monitor their cases and things like that. So this way you can get the help that you need at either a cheap, low, or free cost to you if you have that available to you. And then furthermore, I think there is a national mental health phone number that you can call. It escapes me the name of it at this moment, but if all else fails, there's like the suicide prevention line that you can call for mental health services. And if you call them, they can connect you with any mental health services that might be available to you. And the last thing I would just say is go get the help you need. I know it's scary kind of talking about the problems that you have and really being vulnerable with another person to explain, these are some shortcomings that I have. But, it's important because I think the whole purpose of therapy is for you to be free. And what I mean by that is that the issues of your past and the traumas don't shackle you to doing the bad behaviors that keep getting you caught up or keep getting you into trouble. In order to have therapy and you deal with those issues, you are truly free. And that's the next step, to be free.
Man. I was going to comment on that too. At least some of the things that I have read, even thinking about potentially utilizing counseling services as well, is that at least in my personal opinion, I'm not a certified clinician, but a lot of times people carry things from their past all the way from childhood to adulthood. And it's really kind of analyzing those type of situations and say, hey, I realize this is something from my past, but I'm trying to change now and putting in a plan in place to actually move forward. So
a healthy plan, not a plan to abuse alcohol or drugs or ignore the problem, a plan to really address it and finally make a change. And I feel like, the people in our community are going to benefit so much from hearing this conversation. And I feel like the children at Bosco are benefiting so much from having Franklin on staff. So Frank, thank you so much for being with us today and having this conversation. It was incredibly important. So we're so grateful that you were with us.
We greatly appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I appreciate you taking the time to have me on, and I really appreciate it. And just one further thing, we do have another Black therapist here. His name is Dwayne Gill, who's also working closely with me with some of our youth as well. So, there's plenty of people out there who are willing to help. You just got to try and find us, and we'll do what we can to try and help you. Okay.
All right. Alrighty. Thanks again, Frank. You have a great day and a great rest of July for you, my friend.
Will do. And you do the same. Take it easy.
Thanks.
Hi, this is Kara Davis, and I'm the Associate Director of Residential Behavioral Health Services at the Royal Heights location, and I'm very happy to be sharing our mission moment with you. I'd like to talk about a successful discharge that occurred because of the dedication of several different teams working together. We had a youth who had several previous placement failures, so we began to look at his new transition with hope, but also with caution. The Youth Service Coordinator, Zaria, was attending a TDRI training that was being facilitated by our Director of Trauma-Informed Care, Krista Teckenbrock, and Zaria recognized that the teachings could help to ensure a successful discharge. Zaria reached out to Krista, who enthusiastically agreed to involve the family in training. The family fully embraced the teaching. They also involved the extended family members who would be providing care for the youth to fully engage in trauma-informed care and transition. Consistency in ways that the youth was engaged have resulted in a successful transition from residential care to a loving, trauma-informed home, and it all happened because of the dedication of the Caritas team and their commitment to the mission of Caritas. I'm proud to be a part of the Caritas team, and I'm so grateful that we are making a difference in the lives of our youth. Thank you.